All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine, Women, and Words. I am Michelle. With me, of course, is Diana.
Hello.
And this evening, we have Jennifer Chow back with us. We're going to be talking about her latest book, Ill-Fated Fortune. Thanks for, no, the words got tingled. That's the kind of day it's been. So that's the kind of night it's going to be also. But thank you so much for making time and for coming back. I'm very happy that we didn't scare you away the first time.
It's good to be back. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So, for our listeners who may not yet be familiar with Ill Fated Fortune, can you give us an overview of what the story is about?
Sure. So, Ill-Fated Fortune, it's a cozy mystery. So that's, like a clean mystery that's a whodunit with an amateur sleuth. And so Ill-Fated Fortune is uh set in a fictional town in Central California, and it features this bakery that's run by the mom and daughter, and they just don't make regular treats, but they have special Chinese pastries that are magical. So these baked goods are um, enchanted, and they bring joy and happiness to everyone who eats them. And it's a gift that's been passed down from mother to daughter in their family, the Jin family. So everyone has like a special recipe that they have to make, and that is infused with the magic. So the protagonist is Felicity Jin. She's like tried and tried, and she's baked and failed, and can't really find her signature recipe. But finally, she's latched onto a fortune cookie, and that seems to work. So that's been great news for her because she's been struggling with this. And so her fortune cookies do bring joy, but they also happen to predict the future. So her fortune telling messages actually come true, which is a nice bonus, until one of the fortunes is an ill-fated fortune. So it predicts the manner in which someone dies, one of their customers, and then lo and behold, the customer does die. His body is found in the alley in the back of the bakery. So the police come on the scene and they're like, "What is going on? This man died behind your bakery, and he has a fortune message that's predicting the way he dies." So Felicity is in the hot seat, and then she has to figure out what's going on, solve the case, and also figure out how her magical powers actually work.
And for the story itself, I love the story. I just finished it earlier this week. And one of the things one of the points I was gonna talk about was what makes a cozy mystery separate from like your standard mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of ways, I also like to think of it as like Murder, She Wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Murder,
Yeah,
She Wrote has a tendency to be the cozy mystery, so it's like the Murder, She Wrote style books, in my opinion. But they always have a hobby associated with them, correct?
they usually do. They usually have some sort of like theme and hobby. A lot of times, the authors will have stuff in the back of their books, like mine has like the crafts and things tied to the different shop owners who are in the community where the book takes place.
And you said that this was a fictionalized town, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So for some reason in my head, I was thinking it was Fresno in my head.
It is set near Fresno, so it's like a stone's throw away from Fresno. It's in a little town called Pixie, but that is fictional. But when I reference Fresno, there are parts of it that are true. So like I reference like the underground gardens and different sites that are actually really in Fresno.
Mhm. And I forgot where I heard. I don't know if it was on this podcast or if it was an event. My memory apparently has been like really bad lately because I swear I made plans with somebody and I can't remember who it is, and I've been going around on my phone asking, "Did I make plans with you? Did this happen?" And my sister, I messaged her and she was like, "I hope it wasn't me because I don't have anything written down either." So it's like blind leading the blind over here. But in the I remember somebody talking about how some cozy mystery writers they will actually do plan out like their towns.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard that or if I'm just making shit up out of thin air.
No, it's true. Some people are like really intense. I have a friend who like draws like a little like kind of blueprint for places and then like makes like a complete map of everything, all the streets and all this stuff. And I'm not like that. I make like little, like stick figure-esque drawings with the people and the little shops, and they're like, I kind of know what's in the area, but I'm not like intensely plotting it out.
I feel like that would be that would take the plotting out of the book to a whole nother step where you have like the plan. If my books were like contained in a quaint town, that I would be all over that, I feel like.
Feel like they like people who do things like that, like maps, they should insert it. Like those fantasy books that have maps in the beginning. That would be like
Yes.
amazing.
That would be really great to have with the cozy mystery. Like you've got the map, you've got your cozy mystery, and then you've got the recipes in the back, which I love. I have not tried the recipes yet. I just tried when I went to your launch, there was the cucumber salad.
Cucumber salad in my LA Night Market series. That's like one of the appetizer treats.
Yes, and so I tried a version of that with what I had at home. So I had most of the ingredients. I was like, okay, it's close enough. But it was good. I really liked it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep this recipe and hang on to it, and then I'm gonna actually buy the ingredients so I could properly make it.
That's
Because
fine. You
it
can
was
make
like,
it
I
your
don't.
own. Your own version is okay too.
Well, I didn't have I forgot what the spicy
I would like the chili oil.
yeah, I didn't have the chili oil. That was the one thing I didn't have, so I used tapatio.
Yeah.
So you don't make maps of your fictionalized town, but what was that like to build a town from scratch specifically to fit this story?
I think building the town is kind of one of the most fun parts. Honestly, I like creating. So when I make manuscripts, I like doing that first draft. I like creating the world, creating the places. The thing about a cozy mystery is that you have to create a community. A lot of times the readers will come for the mystery, but they will also come for the community. So it's making that world and making that place feel real and feel like a warm place that you want to escape to. So that includes like all the stores, but it also includes like the people in the town, like the regular recurring characters. And so I
Mhm.
think I don't know, for me it's fun to do that. And like with the characters, I like to make profiles. So I'm often like, oh, these are the characteristics, this is what they look like, these are the
Mhm.
names, and what they like, and their like awkward tendencies, things like that.
Do you have like notebooks? Because I know this is your third series that you've done. Do you have notebooks for every one of these characters that come through? Like there's like little like profiles on each of the pages.
I I do. I probably should have a better system because I'm like, there's like literally notebooks on paper. Um, and I transfer some of it. Like a lot of times people will be like, oh, I have a series playbook, which is true because when you write a series, you're like, I can't remember like what car did they own, or things like that. And so sometimes I will jot notes like, this person drives this, or this person likes wearing these shoes, or things like that.
Mhm.
Hmm, that's
I
really
know.
cool.
I noticed when I was doing a read through of my manuscript that one character had like red hair at the beginning of the book, and then like halfway through, they had black hair or something, like it changed. And I had to go back and do a post it and be like, this character has red hair and stick it on the binder so I can remember it in case, I get further into the book and all of a sudden they have blonde hair,
Yeah. They just like changing their hair color, right? They can
right?
make that a new thing.
Yeah, exactly. And you write fantasy, Michelle, so they could just totally change the hair color and you just write that in.
That's true. It changes with their mood, is what it is. It
Exactly.
wasn't an
You have to make it.
author oversight. It
Yeah.
was a plot point.
It was author creativity.
Yes, yes.
Exactly.
That's what we
The
need to do
muse
for like
was
any of our
speaking.
mistakes. It's author creativity. You did not see the mistake.
Right.
So now you made me think of one thing while you were talking about building the town. And is it challenging? I feel like you have to create all the stores, of course, and then you have to create all these store names. And I feel like for me, that would be really hard to come up with like multiple unique, fun, or, catchy little store names to go with all the storefronts and all the store or shop owners. Was that challenging for you?
Well, actually, this one was a little different because a lot of my towns will have like cutesy names. So for my Sassy Cat series, Mimi Lee owns pet grooming salon. It's called Hollywood because it's in Los Angeles, and she's grooming dogs and animals. Um, and so I had to make like little punny names. But then this one, I said I'm gonna do the opposite because usually like there's like a huge expectation sort of from the readers, like, oh, you make these fun names. And so a lot of the names in the town are just like very generic. It's like Pixie Library, you know. But the one thing is that contrast with where the bakery is. So for Felicity and her mom, they run this gold bakery because her name is Jin, which means gold in Mandarin pronunciation. And so they have that, and then their two neighbors is there's her best friend Kelvin, but his last name is Love, so it's Kelvin Love. So his flower shop is called Love Blooms. And then there's Felicity's godmother. She runs a candle shop, and her last name is Paz, so it's called Paz Illuminations. So those are the three shops that have like kind of fun names that jive with their surnames as well.
And I love that. And one of the other things that you brought up was the sense of community that your readers expect. And I kind of feel like maybe is that also another one of the hallmarks of the mystery is that you have this community that you could just step into and be like, okay, I am a part of this world.
Yeah, I think people really get invested in the characters. Cozy mystery readers will often be like, wait, what's going on with like this relationship? Or, oh, wait, aren't you going to bring this side character back? So you often kind of have to, juggle and be like, oh, this person just needs to do a cameo or something, right? And so because they really, really want to know all the characters, like if I'm going to have a reunion, I want to like talk to everybody, not just like one person at the reunion.
Yeah, like I feel like there needs to be I like Felicity and Kelvin together. So I feel like there should be I'm not going to tell you how to write your book. I scratch that. But like if you did like a friends to lovers kind of thing, I'm
Mhm.
totally game for that. Just, for the
Okay,
next
okay. Yeah. You just have
one.
to read the next books.
Of course I will.
Just a comment card for the comment box.
Yes.
Right.
So,
So, oh no, you go, you go.
okay, because I was gonna just bring it right back to food. I
Oh,
mean,
okay, no, that's
I
fine.
always,
I'm okay with that.
yeah. Now,
I, I was gonna go with murder, so you go with food. That's better.
food first and then murder.
Okay,
You
that's fair.
cannot
That's fair.
kill on an empty stomach.
No, you can't. That's what I've
No.
heard. I don't know.
Yeah, I love how you just throw that one part in. That's what I heard. Just in case the FBI is listening to us right now.
This is a podcast about literature, okay?
Fictional murder, fictional, please.
Yes.
Yes, 100%. So, from let me try to rephrase my question because I'm trying to remember how I properly phrased it. Now, with the baking of this, it was the fortune cookies. This is what you specifically focused on for
Mhm.
what Felicity, that was her, as you mentioned, that was her specialty. And I did not know this about fortune cookies, and I think you should share with the class what you learned about the fortune cookies and the wonderful research that you did on it. And I just want to geek out for a moment over it.
Okay, okay, teacher. No, I didn't actually know this until I started researching for this book because growing up, I'm like, oh, fortune cookies, they're totally like Chinese, right? You see them at restaurants. We had a family restaurant, Chinese restaurant, and it served fortune cookies. And I was like, oh yeah, definitely. And I kind of almost thought of myself like Chinese American, like a fortune cookie, if fortune cookies could be like the analogy. But then as I researched, I realized that there are Japanese roots, and I was like, wait, what is going on? And there's actually been books. I know there's the Fortune Cookie Chronicles, which is a book, and there's like been kind of like little short films about the history of fortune cookies. And there already was like an area in I want to say Kyoto, like where it's like near the temple where they have these folded cookies that are like fortune cookies with messages. I mean the flavoring is different because um it's definitely a sweeter. The American version is like sugar, vanilla, and then the other one's like sesame and like things that are like little savory taste. And so I didn't realize, yeah, that there was this whole origin story of from Japan, and then it brought over to America, and then there's also kind of intertwining history. And I don't put this all in the book; it's really just like a couple of lines, especially because Kelvin, her best friend, brings it up because he's half Japanese, and so but there's this also intertwining of history with like World War II that happens because um, they were kind of serving the fortune cookies at um, like Japanese American restaurants and places, and Japanese American owned restaurants, I guess, as well, and things like that. And so, but then it kind of shifted, right? Because when Japanese Americans were incarcerated, then they moved out. And then when they returned, a lot of some of the baking and the restaurant usage shifted to like Chinese Americans, and so then that became like a shift in where like the fortune cookie culture went, and it's definitely not Chinese. And I was saying to someone the other day that there was like an advertisement in China with this fortune cookie factory, and they were like, "We make American fortune cookies here," and so definitely seen as American. Sorry, that was a long history lesson.
But it's so fascinating.
Wow, I had no idea. That's interesting. I
Like,
didn't
I
know.
love food history just in general, like why we eat what we eat, how we eat it, and how it came to our cultures, whether it's here in the United States or somewhere else. And so, like, the fortune cookie, that's just like so fascinating to me. It's like where like you think of Italians, the Italians are constantly thinking of we think tomatoes. And tomatoes didn't come to Italy until 1400 because of Columbus. So prior to that, you didn't have any tomato-based sauces.
Hmm.
And
I
I
was
so
didn't know that either.
That's interesting. I was reading, sorry, this is so an aside, but I was reading this article about the origin of carbonara.
uh-huh.
And then being like, oh, is there American influence in it because of like American soldiers who had, anyway, like eggs with their breakfast, and how did that inspire this dish?
Mhm.
Anyway, it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, it is. That's another fascinating food though with the American influence in Italy. Because yeah, they don't eat eggs with their breakfast. It's kind of it's a gross thing. Like you just don't do. You have sweets with your breakfast. You don't have the eggs with the breakfast. Well, Michelle, you can go ahead and go on with the murder side of the discussion. I'm done with the food side.
Well, actually, I was thinking your comment about you can't, what was it? You can't murder anyone on an empty stomach or whatever. That's like a really fun little throwaway line to throw in a book somewhere if
Mm,
it's for like a cozy mystery.
That would be
Like,
fun.
mm.
well, you can't kill anyone on an empty stomach. I don't know. It just seems like
First kill
a
later.
very, right? It's like, you don't go food shopping when you're hungry.
Hmm.
You don't kill anyone when you're hungry. I don't know why. I don't know what the correlation is, but
You gotta have that
I
energy. You gotta have the energy to be able to kill
don't.
somebody. I mean, you might be hangry. I don't know about you two, but when I get hangry, I could murder somebody because I need food.
What did Lily said something last night. She said she was tangry. She was tired, hungry, and angry, my daughter.
Mm.
She said, "Mom, I'm tangry right now." I was like, "Is that a thing? Is that what kids are saying now, or did you just make that up?" So I don't know, but I might use that
Oh,
at
yeah, that's a
some
nice
point
one.
in time. But anyway, so as a cozy mystery writer, you do have to, in fact, plan a murder and have it be believable and not immediately obvious who the killer is because you have to let your character solve it. what is that experience like plotting a murder
Mm. I try
for
to,
fictional purposes,
yeah,
of
for
course.
fictional
Just
purposes. Disclaimer. I got so excited with the murder part. I think I try to see, the thing is, it's like I almost have to switch things up because I'm like, I can't have the same kind of murder. So like try to switch it up in different ways. And I think that also keeps it fresh for me. Like some of it's like, maybe like the way the person dies, or it'll be like the different motive. Um, and then sometimes I try to make, like right now I'm trying to make it like a little more convoluted about like what secrets do people have and how does that play a factor in, and then have like crisscross web of like lies and secrets. So so I don't know. For me, it's kind of fun to like kind of stretch that way. I mean, there is a certain box, I guess, I have to play around with. Like I have to have the murder, it's off the page, and it's not, and there's like certain requirements in cozy, like it can be like super gruesome. Um,
Mhm.
but you just know that there's a dead body. And so I think there's that. And then just the other parts are you can be creative, and I try to get inspiration from anywhere really. It's like anything, any classes I attend, or if I talk to um I don't know, like police officers, or if I'm reading like an article, so I'm like, oh, these are interesting, and I always like jot down like different inspirational like scenarios so that I can kind of pull that together.
So now, do you have friends that are police officers that you invite over the house and be like, so I have this murder I want to plan out for fictional purposes only. Can we discuss it?
I do have I don't want to like bother too much, but I do. And then sometimes I'll go like, we have a lot of like neighborhood whatever it is, neighborhood coffee of a cop, or neighborhood, like even neighborhood watch, or like, or my friends, I can be like, hey. And then I've been to some classes where people are, you know, literally giving their expertise, and then kind of open up to like, hey, if you have questions or want to make it like more realistic or whatever, you can also contact me as a resource. I've reached out to them as well.
That's really cool that you could go to those classes to make it even more
Yeah.
like educational. So it's more real,
Yeah.
and that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, cozies I think are the least, in a way, the least realistic, because we can play with, I mean, I have magical fortune cookies, right? So I play with like the real world and concepts, right? Um, but this is nice to have like a little touch of like authenticity there.
Mhm.
Yes.
What an interesting conversation that must be, if going to those classes or those, panel discussions. That must be, I would love to just like sit and listen. Not, I'm not a mystery writer. I am not trying to plan a murder for any other reason, but I am just curious what type of questions would be asked at that kind of panel discussion. Like, what I fit like I remember Diana's question about like where to stab someone to,
Mm.
like how long would it take them to bleed out if they were stabbed in a certain spot
The
or
specific
whatever it was.
question, because my brother was in med school at the time,
Mm.
the specific question I asked him was, where can I stab somebody to make the least amount of sound when they're stabbed? So at 10 o'clock at night, my brother and I had this whole long text exchange about how to properly stab somebody. You have for the least amount of sound and the most amount of blood
Mm.
in a situation.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mm.
And I like that that was over a text message.
I know,
So
love it. But those are the conversations that like you have at panels, and people like don't bat an eye. They're like, okay, yeah, like what does the body look after this amount? Like what are the, what insects appear, to like be in the area? Or they're like, oh, a lot of times there'll be questions about like, how can I get away with something? Like, what's like invisible poison that I could use that's like not detectable with, something like that. And then there's some like they're very, very specific, like, where do I stab someone, or like if I shoot this kind of gun, like what kind of bullet, what's the exit wound or whatever it's going to be like. It's so it just depends, but like I love how people just have these conversations. It's like, oh yeah, it's like a regular conversation, and everyone finds it like interesting, right?
Yeah, they're fascinating. And as a writer, like the book that I'm working on right now, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of stuck with this death. And I want to make sure that it's authentic, and it's dual timeline, so I want to make sure when I reference it properly. And so I reached out to a friend of a friend who teaches criminology I believe he's over at Long Beach State is where he teaches. And so I'm like, hey, I got this question. Can I take you out to lunch and just talk to you about it? Because I'm for, again, food. And, you can get people talking when you get them, eating as well. And,
An
also kind of
interrogation
pay for
tactic.
their time. Yeah. I'm not Italian or anything like that. My world doesn't revolve around food. But it's, at least in the United States, when it comes to there's so many people that are knowledgeable about what it is they do that they're so willing to just sit down with you and be like, yeah, sure. What do you need to know? What can I talk to you about? What can I do to help you? And let's nerd out together. I'm happy to answer your questions. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are a lot of people, and it's nice. And I mean, I think the reach is so far now because there are so many ways that you can contact people, and there's like, forums that you could post questions on, and just all sorts of places that you can get information.
Yes. Like I know we talked to somebody previously a few months back who did was using Reddit, the
Mm-hmm.
Ask Me Anything sections of Reddit. There was I've done it before where I didn't know anything about volcanoes, and I had this one thing that was bugging me about volcanoes. And so I reached out to a volcanologist, and her job was to study volcanoes. And I was like, hey, this is what I'm writing. How can, I do this? And we had this wonderful exchange, and she was learning stuff too. And it was wonderful. And, of course, I thanked her for her time, and I sent her a book as a thank you for it
Oh,
too, because she was also one
Oh,
of the
that's
thank yous for the
nice.
book. Yeah. And it was just the appreciation of it too, because you have these people that are just willing to help and be there to help you with your book.
yeah.
So now, just switching tracks here, what we used to always like to ask, what are you working on now? But we realized that you may not want to talk about that. So we've decided to ask, what are you reading right now? Or
Oh.
what have you read recently if you're not reading right now?
Oh, I can't. It's so sad. I can't even remember. Um, I know that I've done a few arcs where I was gonna blurb stuff. So I know I read it's called The Jig is Up. So it's like a Irish themed cozy mystery by
Oh,
Lisa Q Matthews. It's coming out later this summer. Um, and it's just so fun. It's like Shamrock Sisters, and they like have a bed and breakfast in a cute town, and it's just like it's exactly like the community that you want to go to. And so that was a lot of fun. That I love doing things like that and like reading blurbs. Lisa's also like a fellow blogger with me on this website called chicksonthecase.com. So it's also fun to encourage her that way and just be like, yay, you've got a book coming out.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, if you are one last question, because I
Mm-hmm.
know that was usually our last question, Michelle, but then I've got one last question. If somebody is interested in writing cozy mysteries, is there a place where they can go to, like a communities that they could go to for like writing groups or whatnot to do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm part of Sisters in Crime, which is a nonprofit that we have we cater to all sorts of mystery and crime fiction fans. So you could also be like a reader, but also a lot of writers. And we tend to have like many webinars and that you could access that are archived and talking about like how to write different types of anything actually, like all across the gamut. But definitely, I think a lot of my communities have been through like groups like that, like writing groups. So sistersincrime.org. So that's a good place to
That's
like
cool.
build friends and like encourage each other on this, wonderful but wild life that is being an author.
And we will have links for this. So we'll have a link for your for Jennifer's blog, and we'll have a link for Sisters in Crime, and we also have a link for, of course, have a link to. We will have a link to Ill-Fated Fortune and bookshop.org. As always, bookshop.org supports all the wonderful authors that take their time to come here and speak with us. It supports this podcast, and most importantly, it supports all the independent bookstores out there.
Well, thank you so much for coming to hang out with us and letting us nerd out with you tonight. We had so much fun.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. Hopefully I wasn't too rambly.
Oh no, it was
No,
wonderful. We love it when you get when authors get rambly with us, because then it just helps us go on such wonderful rabbit holes.
Yes, we are fans of the tangent.
Well, thanks again so much. That's always wonderful to chat with you too.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, you too. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.